Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Teammates Podcast. I'm your host, Nick Lensander. In today's episode, we have the pleasure of talking to Alec Bloom, a former Pennsylvania football star, UConn Husky, and Arizona Cardinal. We discuss his journey from Pennsylvania football to big-time college football, the nuances of the tight end position and college football practice, and his journey and signing into the NFL and the realities that come along with that. And chasing his NFL dream by signing with the Arizona Cardinals, his journey through training camp trying to make the final roster. Thank you for listening. Enjoy the episode. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Teammates Podcast. I'm Nick Lensander, your host. Today we have a very special guest from my playing days at UConn, former UConn tight end, and did have a little stint with the Arizona Cardinals, tight end Alec Bloom. Alec, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Nick. It's a pleasure.
So, so we shared a lot of times together back in the college days. So we'll get into that. But for the listeners and everyone watching, give us a little insight to where you were from. So Ligonier, Pennsylvania, I know. Give us a little background into your sports, the start of your sports life.
Yeah, so I grew up in Ligonier, Pennsylvania, which, many people have no idea where that's at. That's about an hour east of the city of Pittsburgh. So, I grew up rooting for the Steelers, Penguins, Pirates, all the Pittsburgh teams. And I played a lot of sports. I can't tell you how many I played because I feel like I was involved in a lot. But eventually kind of figured out that football was the one I was best at and the one that I was going to be able to take the farthest. And, I think growing up around Western Pennsylvania, football is gospel. You hear a lot of people say that, but it really is. And I think growing up in a small town, it was all right. It wasn't too bad, but it was, I had a nice family upbringing in a small town, and, Pittsburgh was a cool city, and I lived there the past couple of years, and my family's still there. So, but yeah, I played pretty much everything.
Yeah. So, I mean, for everyone listening, he was a very good basketball player. I guess that was another big sport for you. And I grew up in a high school too in Santa Barbara, where you play a lot of different sports. Yeah. So would you say basketball was kind of like your other main sport?
Yeah, I think growing up, I'd say baseball and basketball were my biggest sports. When I was really young, I played football, like elementary school. I remember playing football, football, baseball, basketball, the big three for me. And then I stopped playing football actually for 2 or 3 years, I want to say. I don't know why. I don't really have an explanation for that. I always loved football. Like I always wanted to play in the NFL since I was a kid. But for a couple of years there, whether it was just like, I don't know, I don't think my parents had anything to do with it. I think it was just, I was more focused on like travel baseball and travel basketball. And basketball, I personally liked basketball, I think the most when I was a kid. I think that was just the one sport that I really resonated with. And I've always been tall.
For everyone listening. And Alec is 6'6", 6'7". I mean, well, it depends on a good or bad day, I guess.
Depends who's measuring it.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, it's funny because a lot of the tight ends, at least, some in the NFL, but even on our team, I know Tommy played basketball too, and you there a lot of basketball playing tight ends. It just seems to fit pretty well with a kind of a bigger build. So yeah, I mean that's interesting. So then when what year was it, or when do you remember when it was? Then you decided like, oh, this football thing, like I could actually do something with it.
It honestly wasn't until probably my sophomore year of high school. I thought up until probably my sophomore year that I was going to play basketball, in college or wherever. I had always kind of been focused on getting to the next level in basketball, and then football kind of snuck up on me. I would say it was sophomore year in high school, and And funny, actually, tidbit is like I thought about once, playing golf instead of football. I was like, I want to focus on basketball so much. Maybe I'll do golf instead of football in the fall. Thank God I didn't,
Yeah, right.
right? So yeah, I'd say I went to a football camp. I can't remember where it was. And a couple of guys before me had went to like Lehigh.
Right.
One of the kids I went to high school with, Micah Tennant, played offensive tackle at Lehigh. So there was kind of a precedence there for guys going and playing college football.
Yeah.
My coach encouraged me to go to a camp. So I don't remember where it was, but then, the coaches at the camp liked me, and I ended up getting an offer like pretty early on to Lafayette and Lehigh, which are two schools in the Patriot League.
Yeah.
Very good schools.
Yeah.
And I was kind of blown away. I was like, well, this is Division I football offer. Like,
Yeah.
I was expecting to go play basketball, like, D2, D3,
Yeah.
maybe. Like, those are the schools that are looking at me for that. So I was
Yeah.
like, maybe I should focus a little bit more on, catching the ball on the football field.
Yeah, no, that's interesting, and again, Lehigh, those are great schools. They're in the D1 AA, but very good football schools. I looked at different schools like that when I was originally going to play, because I ended up playing D3 basketball before I transferred over to UConn. But so, you became one of the best tight ends in Pennsylvania at the high school level. In your next, so that was your sophomore year. So your junior and senior year, you really came into the position and you became a really good tight end. And I mean, the way I read it, I know you're probably humble, but you were one of the best tight ends in the state. I don't know what the ranking system is in Pennsylvania or whatever, but I
don't remember if there was a ranking system. I remember I think it was my senior year.
Yeah.
Was my best year.
Yeah.
And I was like there's like the three, was it like all-state teams or something?
Yeah.
I was like a first team all-state.
Yeah.
And then the one that typically guys don't get is like the U.S. News ranking.
Okay.
Like they rank football players too. I somehow got that. And so I was ranked that as Pennsylvania's top tight end, I guess. And that kind of, I wasn't expecting that, honestly.
Yeah.
That kind of was humbling for me.
Yeah.
And accelerated a lot of, I think, my offers as well. And I had committed to UConn way before that too, but it was at that point that other schools like started reaching out, like, "Are you committed anywhere?" I was like, "Yeah." So
that's true. Yeah, and I mean, so that's a good point. You did commit to UConn earlier on. Were you? I mean, you were pretty steadfast in your commitment, and you thought that was the right move for you, obviously.
Yeah, this is a time. So this is 2013.
Yep.
So this is a while ago, and growing up in Pennsylvania was, for me at least, I always grew up a Penn State fan. My dad went to Penn State. He played baseball in college, so I was always going to those games. I grew up near Pittsburgh, so Pitt was also a big influence in my life.
Yep.
So I went to their camps, and both of those schools had really big interest in me. But at that time, Penn State was going through a lot of NCAA violations.
Yep.
And they didn't have a lot of scholarships to give out.
That's right.
So they basically said, I remember the day I was at the Penn State camp, and they basically pulled me aside and was like, we would love for you to come here, but like there's not enough scholarships. And that was tough, because I was like, wow, that sucks. Like I wanted to come. That was the place I would have went.
Dang. Yeah, I didn't know that. That's a good story. That was clearly a tumultuous time in Penn State's history. And I mean, they're a very storied program in terms of football, and I mean, they have a huge stadium. There's stadiums massive, and I think Coach Poindexter's at Penn State now.
I know he was there.
I think
Foley was also there. I don't
that's right. Yeah, that's right.
I think Coach Dex is there.
That's right. Okay, so one of the interesting things too, I saw you had a rushing touchdown your senior year.
Oh, in high school.
Do you remember that? Yeah, do you remember that?
Yeah, it rings a bell, I think. So, I mean, context is, high school offenses are insane. So, I mean, in 2013, I want to say our offense ran the wing T at Ligonier.
Oh, yeah, the wing T. Okay.
If you've ever ran the wing T in high school, it's you run the ball 100 times a game.
Yep.
So I basically played like wingback some snaps I played tight end, some snaps I played wide receiver. And that one snap that you're talking about, they ran a little counter. I was like untouched.
Oh
Like
god,
just
we should have we
secure a
should have
touchdown. I can't remember
we
what
should
it
have given
was.
you that in at UConn a little bit. That's funny. Well, yeah. If you guys see, I'll try to find some of his high school film and throw it up for those watching. But yeah, like you were like a big dude compared to a lot of the other guys that you were playing. You stood out for sure.
Yeah, it's the school. Ligonier has since moved conferences to the WPIAL, which is like the big District 7 conference, which all the Pittsburgh teams
Right.
play in.
Right.
But back when I was in school, we were in a much smaller division.
Yeah.
Um, so I was
Yeah.
the guy
Yeah.
that was head and shoulders above some of the dudes I was playing against.
All right. So you obviously had a very good high school career. So you committed to UConn. You go there. Your first year is 2014, which also was my first year there. So we came in together. You didn't go early. You went fall camp was your first when you first went, right?
I
Or did you
got
go
there
for
in the
summer? Oh, you
summer.
went for summer.
Yeah, I
Okay.
was there in the summer.
Okay.
So like June, I think I first got the UConn.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So tell us how that transition was for you a little bit. Obviously it's a different game. Everyone's in college. Everyone's the star player in their high school. So
Yeah.
you come in and give us a little insight.
Yeah, I think it was cool just being around a whole like group of guys, in the summer. And essentially, you took some classes. So I remember us taking a couple of classes, but primarily you're working out, you're doing, training, and
Mm-hmm.
you're living in a dorm with the whole essential team because you don't really get to go home.
Right.
So I think the first summer there, it was kind of like this feels like football camp from high school. Just it's your job now.
Yeah.
So like you're all on the time. Like you're not doing anything else except for school and football.
Yep.
So I'd be lying if I said it wasn't an adjustment. Like you don't have much free time.
Yeah.
Um, but I'd say the one thing I thought was really great about UConn, and I still say, is the people that we played with and the people that we still talk to on a regular basis. And that first summer, I remember the dudes that I still like talk to every day, like
Yep.
Ryan Crozier, Dan Oaks, Steve Ashemi, Sheridan. I remember
Yeah.
being in the dorm, so like we had a conjoined dorm room, and it was like us in one side and them in the other. So like these are the guys you're seeing every single day for 4 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a start of a journey, that's for sure.
Definitely, and shout out all those guys. We'll get them all on at some point. We're gonna figure out scheduling and stuff. But and funny enough, in camp that year, we had both. I think it was Steve and Sheridan in the tight end room.
Yeah, I was actually out in Vancouver where Sheridan lives.
Oh, yeah?
He's from Canada, so he lives in Vancouver right now. So I was out there because I'm a big skier, so I was out there
Right.
skiing, and we joked around because literally that first like couple weeks that we were there,
Yeah.
Sheridan comes in thinking he's gonna play defense, and they're like, "Nah, we're gonna put you tight end for a little bit." How that goes.
I know, and I have I'll throw the picture up. But we have the OG like tight end squad picture with Steve, you, me, Tommy, Hashemi, and I think Sean. And we only had 6 guys in camp that year. Well, and I think that's why, because like we were so thin at the tight end position. Like we had you and you were a freshman, Tommy was a sophomore, Sean, and then that was it. Aside from Sheridan, they pulled in Steve, and then me, who I just got there too. So I mean, that's why they pulled in. They didn't, have a long tenure, I guess, in the tight end room. But
Yeah, I remember Sheridan. He was number 88,
Yeah.
and I just remember him like talking about going back to defense, and eventually that's where he ended up.
he did, yeah,
Had a
and
very
he,
successful career playing defense. So.
yeah, he did, yeah, and he became a good player for sure. So moving on to like becoming a college tight end, and I mean, you played as a freshman, which is not, I guess, the norm. I mean, I would say more freshmen than not don't play.
Yeah, I remember coming in and I think it became evident pretty early on that we were going to need help
Yeah,
just because
exactly.
I think Tommy was a redshirt
Yeah.
freshman
Hmm.
and Sean had been there for a couple of years. But I think the offense they were trying to run with two tight ends would have been hard, so they needed a third guy. Um, and I mean, I still remember some of the first snaps. I definitely wasn't ready to block anyone in college,
Exactly.
but I was, a half decent route runner and I could catch the ball. So that's ended up pretty much utilizing that way, at least my freshman year, which worked out.
Yeah.
I mean, I playing that first year.
Yeah.
Some guy won a red shirt, but I wasn't really thinking I wanted to do that. So.
Yeah, you didn't. I mean, you don't necessarily need to, but it is definitely more difficult. But you're right, because we ran more pro style offense, so we used a lot of tight ends. Again, the coaching staff was from Notre Dame and Bob Diaco, and so like we used a lot of tight ends. And I remember right when you had your first touchdown against Boise State, and I think that was a couple games in. It wasn't too far into the season, but and I remember your nick, like everyone used to call you, or not everyone. Some of the guys in the room called you Baby Giraffe, right? That was
yeah, easy with everyone there.
Yeah. Not everyone called him that. Some of the, I guess, who was our position coach the first year? It was
Mike Cummings.
It was Mike. Yeah. It was Coach Cummings. That was funny.
Yeah, no, I remember that passed its way around because Coach Diaco called me that. I think in a press conference or something.
That's right. That's what it was. Yeah.
And I quickly put on 30 pounds to avoid continuing being called that. So.
Right. Yeah. So, and I mean, you had a little bit of success your first year. Again, the touchdown against Boise State. What did it feel like scoring a touchdown, as a freshman and in a game like that? I mean, it must be a little bit different than, the high school feeling of doing it.
Yeah, I still think that was one of probably my coolest moments, I think, in college football because, I was a freshman. I didn't know right from left. Like, I was just out there running routes. And, I remember lining up. I remember that play very vividly. I lined up for that play. I was running a seam route, and there was no safety over top. It was just a linebacker I had to beat. And Chandler Whitmer was our quarterback.
I remember. Yeah.
That was probably the first snap I took in the game too. Like, I don't remember what quarter it was in, but like first snap, I'm like cold and they have me run a seam route from like the 30-yard line in the red zone. I'm like, okay.
And it just
so
worked.
I run the route and I knew the ball was in front of me as soon as I saw the defense. And it was the perfect throw. And it was one of the coolest experience I think I had in college.
Yeah. And I have a picture from the telecast. I remember jumping on you after that that catch. That was fun. I mean, we're all pumped up about that. And I mean, you ran because you had full head of steam going like to the back of the end zone, and then you like ran, and I think you slipped on the gravel or the asphalt.
There's like asphalt. Yeah, there's like asphalt in the rent. I don't know if they ever fixed that, but like they definitely should.
It's like right behind the end zone.
Like right where the field goal net goes up, there's like asphalt, and guys that we hang out with still pick on me about that. Saying like I did a slide as my celebration.
I know. I know that was a great moment, obviously, and and that was one of the, and I touched on it in previous episodes too with some of the guys, but I think that was one of the greatest things about our group. I mean, the team as a whole, but our tight end group especially, like. We were as excited for everybody else, everybody else's success. And we were really a pretty close group, I would say.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, I think especially when we ran the pro style offense, we were involved a lot.
Yep.
And we did a ton of running in practice. So I think it just pulled us closer together, and that, we had to constantly, be next man up if someone was, had a tweak or someone, was really just couldn't go for another route. Like you just run in and you say, "Coach, I'm going in," and it's fine. Like
yeah. And I remember you tweaked something. Was it your freshman year or sophomore year? Was it your knee or something? I can't remember. there was some time you were out for a little bit. It wasn't a significant amount of time, but you were out for a little bit. And I remember, yeah, we had like two guys. Like I can't remember. Someone else was hurt. I think Sean was hurt too. So it was like me and Tommy running three huddles.
No, that was you and me.
Oh, was that you and me? Was that me and you?
Me and TD were just talking about this last weekend
Oh,
because we were in spring ball, I think.
Yeah, that was spring ball. Yep.
I think it was after Sean left. So it was me, you, and Tommy.
That's right.
And I think Tommy had an injury. I can't remember what
That's
it was.
Right. That's what it was.
So it was me and you running ones, twos, and threes. It was like, I think remind everyone that like this was a time whenever like, you and me were both like trying to make weight. Like we were trying to I was trying to gain weight.
Yeah.
Like that spring ball, because like I remember my first year I was like 230 or 235, and they wanted me to get to 265.
Yep.
And I was like, how am I going to get to 265? 30 some pounds.
Yeah.
When I'm running ones, twos, and threes, it's just me and you.
Yeah.
Like it's not going to happen.
I know.
You're losing 10 pounds of practice on sweat alone.
It was, yeah. So that's what it was. So spring ball, it was just me and you, and we had 3 groups to run with. And again, in college practice, for those who didn't play in college, I mean, the snaps are very immediate after the next play is over. So after the play is over, the next snap is called, and you're going. So like literally, if either of us had a route that was longer than 10 yards, then like we'd have to hop in the next one. And I mean, it was nuts. And at times we'd be sprinting back to the next huddle. One of us would be sprinting back to the next huddle to go 2 in a row, depending on the scenario. I mean, we definitely ran a lot, and that was me and you. I forget that was an interesting.
We also ran a lot of 12 personnel too, so we had 2 tight ends pretty much every play.
That was the other thing.
It really limited what we could do on offense because it was just me and you.
That's right. Yeah. I forget about because then if we had 2 tight ends in the play, then it would just be us 2, and then we'd have to just sprint to the next huddle and do it again.
Yeah. So and I think total snaps we'd take 10 in a row.
And then you'd be it would gas us for sure. Yeah. We would be tired. So that's a good story for those listening. But so we had a lot of coaching changes and things going on, obviously. I think we had a different tight end position coach every year, basically. And things were shifting around, different OC for the most part. How were you able to stay confident in your abilities and yourself with all these different coaching changes and stuff going on?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think anyone that was on our team knows it was a struggle for sure.
Yep.
Just in terms of in our position group, especially, just because things were constantly moving around. So, so even overall, I guess we came in, or at least I was recruited by someone before Coach Diaco. So like I came in,
right,
and there was a new coach there, and then my last year was a new coach. But the tight end room, we had Coach Cummings, then we had Coach Patterson,
Coach P. Yeah, I love Coach P.
Coach DeBoer was also at some point our only coach.
Yeah,
Dave, and then Coach Verducci, and then Corey.
Yeah.
So probably five position coaches throughout our time there.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think to your point, you just have to be confident in your game. Like, what you bring to the table. Kind of your role in terms of what you're expected of. What you're supposed to go out and do on a daily basis. And you also have to kind of learn your coaches. I guess, lack of a better term, learn how they want you to perform and how they want you to go about practice, because practice is 95% of college football, I'd say.
Yep.
And some coaches are all about it. Some coaches want you to rest. Some coaches want you to go 100% and, never look back. So it's just kind of adapting to different coaching styles, I'd say.
Yeah. And that's a good point, because each coach has a different coaching style. Obviously, Coach Cummings is a little bit different than Coach P and Coach Verducci. Yeah. And so those expectations that they have, because, I mean, when we're out in practice, I mean, every minute is accounted for, so, I mean, it is a little tough to adjust so freely, but kind of looking back at it, it is it makes you be able to adjust to things very easily, right? Because you're thrown a lot of different scenarios all the time, and you just got to say, okay, like let's do my best here, you know. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, there's cons to it. Obviously, you don't have the same flow of things, and you can't necessarily get into it. But there are, you know, it does make you good at adjusting on the fly, basically.
Yeah, and I'd be interested to hear your thoughts too. I
Yeah,
think I took something specific from each coach.
yeah,
I think I can look back from Coach Cummings as being the very integral piece of me learning how to block
yeah,
because I came into college football with very little blocking experience. So he was the first person that really taught me how to block. And then Coach Patterson, he was a former quarterbacks coach. He was an offensive mind. He basically instilled the route concepts, I'd say. He was very keen on route concepts and, you know, getting out of your break and being in touch with the quarterback. And then Coach Verducci, he's an offensive genius. I
yeah.
mean,
I loved him.
I feel like my skills, and I'm sure Tommy and you would probably agree, is our skills were so refined under him because every little detail, he would stop and rewind film on your foot, your first footstep, like 5 times and look at it. And he'd say, you know, your foot needs to be 2 inches more to the right or something like that. And we practiced footwork. I think my footwork got a million times better under his leadership. So,
Yeah, that was I agree on all those fronts. So the first off, Coach Cummings. Yeah, I mean, I went into that not knowing how to block either, basically. So we were both learning from him, and he knows how to block. He knows blocking schemes, like how he knows to tell the time, like like that's ingrained in him. I found a clip the other day of like a 15-second video of us at practice, like right when camp started, the first year of us doing like the first step drill, and so I'll throw it up so we can see that. But I know, kind of funny. But then right, yeah, and then it progressed to Coach P, like learning from like a quarterback's perspective how to see the field and how to survey different things. And yeah, I mean, I also agree. Coach Verducci, I loved Coach Verducci. He taught me a lot about the game, and he had some good sayings too. But he, that was a good way you put it. You like we were able to really refine the things that we did and to the littlest, microscopic thing. And to him, they would stand out on film. And over time, we could see the same things, but you kind of have to change how you look at it because. I mean, your hand was just like a little bit too far down. Your foot was, they're just the tiniest things, but that's where you make the jump, right? To being a great tight end.
yeah. Yeah, I think, the drills that we did with each coach were different. And to your point, Coach Verducci's was very much, precision. And we would sit there and do hand drills and putting our hand in the pad or in another, or actually just in someone else's shoulder pads.
Yeah.
I remember you working together with drills and
steering wheel.
Me controlling your pads. That was really the first time that it kind of all clicked. It's like things clicked that like, once I get control of the person's body, like if my hands win and I have right footwork and I have a good base, I can take you wherever I want to take you. And I'd say that was the biggest takeaway for him.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And I mean, over the course of your career, you became a really good blocking tight end. Yeah, you put on some weight. What was the highest you got to? 260-ish?
Like 265 was the highest I ever was.
Yeah.
I put that on quick, man.
Yeah.
I was like sophomore year, I was playing at like 260, 265, and I felt like a loaf.
You were close.
Slow.
Yeah.
And, I think once I got back down to like around 250, 255, I felt so much better.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it takes a little bit of time to put on the weight, like being good weight, like, putting on 30 pounds, it's not going to be all muscle immediately,
Right.
Yeah. So I totally get that. So what do you think was I mean, we went to a bowl game, which was a cool moment, right? The Houston game was awesome. I know, I mean, you must have had to, I have that photo that I threw up during the Tommy episode of you going to check on him because he broke his broke his leg.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
that was crazy.
what was that? What do you think was like the coolest moment for you? Yeah, you like the Boise State touchdown was good. Maybe it's a different year. Something happened. I know the Houston game was huge. Is there any other moment that you can point to that things really like came together for you?
Um, I thought I think the Houston one sticks out. I think
Yeah.
that's one would use, but
Yeah.
remember that wasn't just beating a top 5 team in the country. That was also, or top 10, something like
Yeah.
that. That was also us getting bowl eligible for the first time in
Like 10 years. Yeah.
how many years,
Yeah.
and that was a big thing.
Yeah.
Like people, like that was just cool to be a part of. And also, Tommy goes down with a really bad injury, which is terrible. Obviously, like you never want to see anyone, especially a really close teammate, get injured like
Yeah.
that. But then all of a sudden, like I have to do 2 different jobs. Essentially, I have to remember, what he was supposed to want to play versus what I was supposed to do, which is the hard thing about tight end. Is that's why some people say it's, other than the center and the quarterback, tight end is one of the hardest positions
Yeah.
to play, because
Yeah.
you have to know so many roles.
Right.
You have to be able to play many different positions. So whenever he goes down, it's essentially now I have to be able to know the F and the Y. But I mean, we pulled it
Yeah.
out somehow, and
Yeah,
got
and I mean the other part of that is Bryant also went down. So our starting quarterback went down.
Oh yeah.
And so Tim went in, and he did a good job running the offense, to get us over the edge of that. And we had Tim on episode 3, I think. But and obviously, he's been successful in his own right after college, obviously. Yeah, so for those listening, our tight end position was, basically a Y and F. I mean, there were some guys that would interchange between Y and F. Like you learned both positions. I know you were mostly Y, but then Tommy like ran the F a lot. But then he I think the way he put it, you guys were attached at the hip, basically.
And Coach Rucci's offense, there was a lot of shifts and changes where I would switch sides and Tommy would come with me, or he would stay over there.
Yep.
But we both had to know both positions. But I primarily ran the Y, but could also run the F in any situation. And Tommy was the same way. He primarily did the F, but could do the Y.
Yeah, so. And we basically had to know. I mean, regardless, we had to know both positions because we needed to be able to hop in and anywhere at any time, essentially. Yeah. So I mean, that was an amazing game. Obviously, the bowl game. I mean, funny not funny, but Jordan, ended up getting hurt. The way he said, I think Tommy said like the week after in bowl practice, and he said he looked in to the facility for one play, and the one play that he watched was Jordan snapping his leg.
Oh yeah, that was bad.
In practice, you remember that?
I actually forgot about that. That was a bad injury.
That was everyone. I mean, I remember everyone was freaked out by that one. Yeah. So looking back at your overall college career, we had downs as a team, and we had a lot of changes and different things, but we had our successes at times. Would you have done anything differently? I mean, you kind of take things how they come, right?
Yeah, I think, I don't think I would have done anything too different. I think overall, everyone would agree I would have loved to win more football games,
right?
In more competitive situations in terms of playing for championships and going to bowl games. Right. The success we had was nice, and I think overall just got to play with a bunch of really great guys and coaches too. I think a lot of the coaches that surrounded us, specifically thinking Coach Patterson, Dave DeBoer, and Frank Verducci, were people and mentors that I took things from them that I'll use in my day-to-day life even now. They just were such great mentors, and and that's the way it goes in sports. College sports is very competitive, and the coaching carousel never stops, and it certainly didn't for us. I think UConn was a great university to attend, and we all got good degrees. So, I don't know. Think I changed much.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's tough. There's a lot you can't control. And especially as of, recently, it's like, really if you don't win immediately, then it's like, we have to change a ton of stuff, which I don't know. There's good and bad things about that, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I agree. We had a ton of great people around us, and I mean, I certainly wouldn't be where I am today without all of them, the coaching and you and the guys and everyone else. So I mean, I agree. I mean, it's definitely, it definitely changes you for sure for the better. And we put in so much time and effort and energy and for, years and years and years. So, we all get that internally, obviously.
Yeah, it's, waking up 5 a.m. every day and going to Coach Bayless's lift and then going to practice and then going to school and, do that for 4 years with, a group of guys, and you get pretty close.
100%, 100%. Yeah. And, I wouldn't have wanted to do it with anybody else. So you and Tommy both, you both left the same year, right? You finished the same year. You went the same pro day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. We did the same. We were the same pro day.
So I did have a little video of that too, which I'll toss up. So tell us a little bit about your experience, going into pro day, training for it, and how that evolved into eventually you getting signed for, I think was it mini camp, or was it the 90 man, or I can't remember what it was.
It was, yeah. So it was right after the final day of the draft.
Yeah.
I wasn't really expecting to get picked, but
yeah,
I signed with Arizona on
right.
the 90 man.
Right.
Contract.
Yeah. So yeah, take us through the pro day process a little bit. How was that for you? I know you were gonna at least give it a shot, right? To get to that next level. And I mean, you had a good build. I mean, you were 6'6" to 6'7" and 265.
Yeah, I think it's funny because you go back to like playing. I think it was our last game was like at Cincinnati or something, and we obviously weren't going to make a bowl game that year.
Yeah.
But that game ends and you're essentially kind of in limbo. You're like, I think I have a shot to play again. I'm not really sure. But for me, I basically said to myself, a lot of guys do the same thing. You can either choose to start your life and, leave football in the rearview mirror. You can say, I'll take the however many months it is between the end of the season and pro day. It's like 3 or 4 months, I'd say. Yeah. And give it a go. Yep. So I was, I never really thought I wouldn't try.
Yeah.
That was always kind of my goal, was to play in the NFL. I remember when I was a kid watching Steelers wanted to play professional football. Yep. So I was like, I have nothing to lose.
Yeah, exactly.
So I basically moved home. I moved back to like Western Pennsylvania and started just training. I went and worked out every day, caught routes, ran 40s, and just was working on my intangibles. And pro day comes around. Actually, funny story about pro day is there was a really bad storm. So like it was I think it was like snowing. I can't remember what
really?
month it was in, but it was like snowing so bad in the Northeast. So my flight gets canceled out of Pittsburgh going to Hartford. And I was driving to the Pittsburgh airport, which is the complete opposite direction of the East Coast.
Right.
And I get a notification my flight's been canceled. So I literally turn around and drive 9 hours to Connecticut.
Oh my God.
For pro day the next day. And meanwhile, I'm calling like Coach Baylock and Corey Etzel, like, hey, is this still going on? Like, I don't want to come up here and this be canceled. But like I've trained for like 4 months for this. Like, please tell me like something's happening, like where I can at least, run a 40 and show someone I can catch a football.
Yeah.
And thank God it was still happening.
Yeah.
And got up there and I thought I did fine. I mean, I think pro days are come and go. I think your tape probably speaks more than what pro day would.
Right. Right.
But eventually, I would say my pro day, I thought it went okay, but I wasn't like 100% sure I would play. Like I wasn't 100% sure I would get any offer.
Yeah.
So I was fortunate to get interest from a couple teams around the draft. I didn't really think I was going to get drafted. I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
Um, but eventually, I thought Arizona was the best fit, and they offered me a contract, and I signed. I want to say it was the last day of the draft. Right after the draft ended, they
Yeah.
called me and sent me a contract, and I signed it. So
I mean, that's getting there. I mean, it's tough enough to get there, much less make a roster. So I mean, you must be proud about that at least, right?
yeah, I think that was a goal of mine, was to make the NFL. But I think anyone that would have gone and done that, I think a lot of the guys we play with would say the same thing. All of us are high achievers, and
Oh yeah,
we'll never really be satisfied
of
with
course.
what we achieved. We'll always kind of be, I wish I could have made that team, or I wish I could have play for another year or something. But
Totally.
looking back on it, I'm just really fortunate to have gotten the chance, I'd say.
Yeah. So you sign up, and I mean, so you're on the 90 man. It's not just a mini camp invite. What was that? What was that like for you? What was that? How long were you down there for? Number one, I guess, and then what was that adjustment like? What was the biggest difference from college to just hopping into NFL practice?
Yeah, I think I moved there. So I moved to Arizona like a couple weeks after I got signed, which was, I think, the first event, usually rookie mini camp. So I go through rookie mini camp.
Yep.
And I didn't take much. Took some clothes and cleats, and I was there for like 6 or 7 months. I lived in Arizona. It was a huge adjustment, I'd say, just in terms of your day to day.
Yeah.
So the NFL's day to day is very different than college. You're a professional. You got to get your work done. They're not going to hound you like you do in college to go eat meals. They're not going to make sure you check into breakfast. You do what you need to do to be in the best physical and mental shape you can be in to perform. And for me, as someone who's trying to make the team, it's even more stringent. Like, you want to be early to everything. You want to be know the playbook like the back of your hand. So you're trying to make a name for yourself, and I think overall the NFL is much more laid back than college, which I loved. I think we look back to college, and it's it's a grind. It's day to day. You got to get after it, or you're going to hear about it.
Yep.
College is not, or the NFL, excuse me, is not like that. It's you handle your business as a professional, and at the end of the day, we'll let you know if you did enough or you didn't. So
yeah. I mean, that's interesting. That's interesting. Jeez. So you were there. I mean, you were there 7 months, I think you said. Is that what you said?
I made it to the last cut. So
you did? Oh wow!
So I made it through 4 preseason games, and the last day got axed.
So you did. Okay, I didn't know this actually. So you played in the preseason games.
Yeah.
So
I played all 4 of them. I had snaps in.
How
progressively got more snaps as
right. As so in the preseason, the starters kind of play toward the front end of them, and then the depth chart kind of plays more towards the second, third, fourth game. So, I mean, how was that going from practice to actually playing in an NFL game, like suiting up and taking snaps?
It was really cool. I think the game isn't, I wouldn't say the game's a whole lot different. The game's faster. I think as you go up a level, the game gets faster.
Yeah.
I remember my first snap in college, trying to block someone was like, I turned around, the dude was behind me. And the NFL, I thank God, wasn't that bad, but you have to get off on the snap count, or you're going to be, the play's over.
Yeah.
So that was probably the biggest change, I think, was just, I need to know snap count every play so I can get a jump and be able to block someone who's 20 pounds more than me.
Yeah.
On the D end. So that was the biggest change, I'd say.
Yeah.
Speed.
Yeah. And blocking, I mean, I would say we got a good head start in blocking, like, big guys. I mean, we had a lot of really good defensive linemen on our UConn team.
Yeah, we did.
So, I mean, there were tough battles with them, but I'm sure that prepared you a little bit, right? I mean, sure, it's not, JJ Watt, but but it, must have prepared you a little bit to be able to block the end. And then, that's the tough part about the tight end position is, you've got to be able to be as agile as a receiver, but then you also got to block 300-pound guys.
Yeah, I think, Tyler and I were just talking about this last weekend. I think we had a lot more blocking experience than other tight ends. At least I had a lot more blocking experience in tight ends that I was playing with.
Yeah.
That was at least in the tight end room for the Cardinals, outside of the veterans, obviously. But I think at a certain point, though, that kind of hurts you because the NFL is a lot about receiving tight ends. You don't see many blocking tight ends.
Right.
They're a dime a dozen.
Right.
So I think at some level that kind of hurt me, that my identity was, a big body tight end that ran a pro style offense at UConn. And I'm, competing for a job with guys who, ran the spread and were basically receivers at the tight end position. The hybrid tight end is very much sought after because there's very few guys that can do both very well. So I think I maybe pushed a little too hard towards the blocking end of things when I was in college, and we didn't technically throw the ball enough to the tight ends. So that kind of hurt me, I think, at the next level. And that I wasn't, I was expected to be a good blocker, but I was also expected to be a good receiver. And I had to kind of catch up to the other guys in terms of like things like that.
Funny enough, you come in not knowing how to block, right? And and leave a blocking tight.
Yeah.
No,
but I think, I think we, at the end of my senior year, I think that we tried to, we went back towards spread offense at UConn.
Right.
So I lost a little bit of weight. I was trying to, I got better at route running. So that helped, but
yeah, still
is what it is.
Yeah. So who was in that tight end room?
Oh, you're really quizzing me here, Nick.
Do you know at all? Who are the vets? Were there any vets in there?
Yeah, Jermaine Gresham was the vet.
Yeah.
And then the other starter was Ricky Seals-Jones.
Yeah.
He was an amazing receiving tight end. He did some things in practice that were just crazy. He was just such a good receiving tight end.
That's awesome. You don't remember everybody, but you were. Larry Fitz was on that team, right?
Yeah. That's good memories. Larry Fitz is everything and more that people tell you. He's just such a good dude.
Yeah. So that must have been pretty cool to practice with the guys, be in the locker room with the guys. Some veterans that you've watched growing up, and going into the game.
Yeah, I think I grew up near Pittsburgh, and Larry Fitzgerald is a Pitt legend, and so seeing him and some of the other guys that I grew up watching play football. Again, I'm a Steelers fan at heart since I was a kid, and that Super Bowl at the Cardinals is
exactly
my favorite memories as a kid watching that game. And so, I'm not playing for the Steelers, but I'm playing for the Cardinals, and around some of the guys that were on that team, not a whole lot, but some of them, and definitely a dream come true. But when you're in the moment, you don't really sometimes you take a step back and you realize it, but you try not to, because it's like, I have a job to do.
For sure.
Looking back on it, it's easy to say, it was really sweet. But in the moment, you're just like, I'm trying to make the team here.
For sure. Exactly. To give a couple other examples from our guys like Tim, going into being behind Aaron Rodgers, that's kind of wild. I guess Tyler in Jacksonville was with, Tim Tebow was in the tight end. There's big names that are everywhere in the NFL. And you've definitely got to ground yourself, and you can take a step. Now you're able to take a step back and see things for what they were, and appreciate it probably a little bit more. I know going into college and just high level football in general, I didn't realize how much revolved around the game, like people's lives, like days on the weekends, like for millions and millions of people. I didn't know how much their lives revolved around the game. I never grew up with football. I started playing my junior year and senior year, which I was a backup guard and D end. So I never realized. And once I got to college, obviously you're in the moment and you're just like, oh, this is kind of cool. All this different stuff. And then later when I remember when I left, like I was like, there's so many people that are involved in all these things, and it's very cool. And the fact that you're able to even do that, and I mean, is a testament to your work ethic coming in from a freshman, and you really honing your abilities and focusing, and I mean, I think that's awesome, and it's definitely something to be proud of. And so, I mean, you went in. Did you think you had a shot to make the roster?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think after throughout thought I had a shot to make the roster.
Yeah.
But most teams take, 2, maybe 3 tight ends on the 53.
Right.
There were 2 pretty well established tight ends there.
Yeah.
So I was, shooting for that 3rd spot.
Yeah.
And, when it happened, I wasn't really shocked. Like, I was just like, I have no regrets about it. I think, there wasn't one day I didn't think about that. I was like, I should have gave more that day. Like, no, like
for sure. Yeah. You gave it all you could. Was there any practice squad interest anywhere, or?
When I left, they were still trying to figure out the P squad. And, a couple other teams, they said I would have interest in P squad other places. I didn't end up hearing anything on that. Oh, okay. And then after that, I kept up with it for like a month or 2, training and such.
Yeah.
But there comes a point, and I tell everyone this whenever they ask about it. It's just like there comes a point when you need to like realize, maybe it's time to start your life. Maybe the dream is you kind of lived it already. Yeah. And I was happy with what I accomplished. What I love to have been a superstar tight end in the NFL. Yeah, who wouldn't? Like, everyone would want to do that. But it's very hard, and it's a tough business to be in, especially if you're undrafted. Especially if you came from a school that runs a pro style offense, and you didn't get a lot of touches. So I just made a decision to go back to school.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I mean that's a good way to look at it. I mean that's right. I mean I know I turned down going trying out pro day and trying to at least trying, because I mean that was my mindset of it. It's like it's gonna come to an end for everybody at some point. The odds aren't super in your favor to. I mean you went further than 99.9% of people. So being able to understand that it will end for everybody. I think the average lifespan in the NFL, even if you make it, is a couple of years. So, and you want to be able to be healthy, and I mean, for the most part, you stayed healthy your entire career.
Yeah, I was very fortunate in that regard, and I think that also played a factor in me, deciding to retire. Was I made it this far without any major injuries.
Yeah.
I never had an ACL or anything like that. And for the most part, I don't really think I had any major concussions that were documented. So
the documented is the key word.
The key word there. But I mean, you see guys that are now, retiring in their prime because they're just so worried about injuries.
Yeah, totally.
It's a tough sport. I never really realized how much it takes to actually do the job until you're doing the job. And
right.
It's a full-time, recovery is key. So.
It's very, I mean, it's a very, it requires a lot of you, of your body, mentally. It definitely requires a lot. And I mean, so, talk about, TD, who we had on episode 2 for those listening, kudos to him for, being able to carve out a role in the league. That's, amazing. It's so hard, as like to be able to do that. So okay, so we're gonna transition here to, you went back to school. You went to Pitt, right?
Yeah, I did grad school. Yeah, University of Pittsburgh. So.
Yep. So what made you want to go back? Did you know, even if you retired, you thought you wanted to go back to school after you retired, regardless of when that was? What were you thinking there?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd always kind of known in the back of my mind that, as an undergrad playing football, they call you a student athlete, but football is your job.
Yeah.
Let's not get it twisted.
Yep.
So you're there to play football, and school. I was always okay in school. Like I did enough to have good grades, and I got an econ degree. So I think it was either go get a job, as I think I was looking at financial analyst or like financial planning positions, which I would have been okay doing. But I also knew at some point I'd probably have to get a master's degree because bachelor's degrees these days are pretty common, and I think setting yourself apart in the job in the marketplace is easier to do with education than anything else, because I didn't have a whole lot of experience.
Gotcha.
So I decided to go back and get my MBA and MHA,
Yep.
health administration, which is what I'm currently doing.
Right.
And I love it. I think it's, I ended up deciding to do healthcare just because I've always liked finance and things like that. But I think it's, there's kind of the warm glow of you're making a difference in healthcare. Whereas, if I was sitting in a desk all day crunching numbers, I kind of think, life, so
not a lot of warm glows there.
Yeah.
So
I like that aspect of it.
Yeah, totally. That's right. And let's not get it twisted. That's a great. We've heard that saying a billion times.
Yeah.
So you're adjusted. You had to adjust back to regular life as a student. How was that going from, being an athlete student to being a student?
Yeah. It was actually great. I'm not gonna lie. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
We never had the prototypical college experience that most people have.
You're right.
I'm not saying I, joined a frat and partied all the time, but I actually got to like invest in my schoolwork, and I actually started learning a lot of things, which was
wild concept, right?
Yeah, what a concept for college. So I actually enjoyed it, and I worked all throughout. I was in grad school for 3 years because I got a dual master's, so it was a long time, but I worked a full-time job at Pitt's Medical Center, UPMC, in administration that whole time. So it was essentially like I was doing college football again because I had a full-time job and I'm going to school.
Same thing.
But I'd been so used to doing that, like it didn't really, I'd never really hit me. Like most people are like, I'm not going to work 40 hours this week because I have this test or this to do. And I'm like, what do you mean?
You're like, this is easy. Yeah.
I've been doing this for years, people.
Yeah.
No. But I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed going back to school. I thought it was a good move. So
yeah. I mean, and you did it for 3 years, so you liked it enough. What? So I mean, specifically in your field, that's going to be definitely more helpful than necessarily everyone going to grad school. But what were your biggest takeaways from like the actual grad school part of it, and learning? Not everyone goes to grad school. I know sports wise, some people grad transfer to just get more degree out of their experience, I guess. But you went back to focus on that. So I mean, you were obviously able to make more regular people relationships and connections and different things like that, probably in the field that you want to do. So what do you think was your biggest takeaway from grad school as a whole?
I think a lot of it deals with connections. So I think a lot of grad school, especially business school, is who you know and who's going to have a position for you after you're done.
Right.
Don't get me wrong. I think I learned a lot at Pitt. I think the curriculum was very much focused towards healthcare, just because Pittsburgh is a very big healthcare city. So I think I learned a ton in that regard, but also like I wouldn't have my job today if I hadn't reached out to someone who works at the organization and asked for an internship. And that's kind of how everyone does it. If you go back to school, you connect with an alumni who's at an organization you want to work at, and you get your foot in the door, and then hopefully you get an internship or you get a job offer. Then you work your way up. It's just like football. You come in the first year, your freshman year, and you have to show them what you can do, and everyone's on the same playing field. It's the same thing. There's a lot of correlations. So yeah, I'd say that was probably the biggest thing I learned is how to network.
Yeah.
How to talk with people who have been around for a long time that can help you get to where you want to be while you also help them in their field. So
Right. Yeah. And it's, I think, a lot about this podcast is, how sport, like things translate to life. But I mean, it's very clear a lot of the different things that we learned as athlete students correlate to life one way or another. Whether it's, what you're doing, the relationships you're building, the adversity you're going through, all those different things. So, I mean, that's, great to hear that experience. I know I personally didn't go to grad school, so it's a good, it's good to hear a different perspective on, seeing it and experiencing it and the whole thing.
yeah, but on the flip side of the coin, I think by no means is it required at all. I think,
Right.
honestly, I'd say college in general, looking back on it, college in general, you could, there's a lot of people that do it. You start a business and you go to college and you're successful. I think success is all about how hard you're willing to work. And college is essentially just a stepping stone to hopefully, position where you meet people and they help you become successful. So
Absolutely. I mean, that's right. And especially now more than ever, even when we were back in school, but even more now, you can just do things, it doesn't have to be school. Now school has the infrastructure for, let's say, college sports, right? For college football, especially like that's pretty, like if you're going to play football at the next level, I mean, that's pretty necessary. And it's a great thing in a lot of different aspects, right? But you're right, is for like regular school, it's not required in a lot of different realms. There are certain things that are required if you have to learn about things, medical school, or being a lawyer, different things where you need to learn and understand a bare minimum of things. But right, yeah, nowadays there's so many opportunities anywhere. So if you see something that you want to do, just go try it. Go experiment with it. The internet has really opened up a lot of doors to be able to do whatever you want to do, right? And I think that's an awesome thing, and it just, I think it lets people know that they understand and go into everything, like that they have options, right? They can, school might be an option that would work, but maybe they have another option, if they, put work into it. I mean, you're going to go put work in after school anyways, right? So, I mean, it's different, but yeah, no, totally. You're absolutely right. It's not required by any means, especially nowadays.
Yeah.
So the next segment that we're going to go into is what I call the big questions. So you're, let's talk a little bit about the toughest part of your journey through sports and football. So whether that's, from high school, getting all the way to, the edge of an NFL roster.
The toughest part about it?
Yeah. What do you think was the toughest part for you?
Oh, that's a good question.
You can think about it for a second, but I mean, obviously there's a lot of different aspects in there. You have to persevere through a lot of different things, on multiple levels. There's just so many different facets to the game and understanding it and your investment in it. And there's just going to be a lot of downs. There just are. And they're different for everybody. So, I don't, it doesn't have to be one specific thing, but it could be more general if you think so.
Yeah, I think on a fun note, I think the hardest part was gaining weight. I think a lot of people don't appreciate how hard it is to gain that much weight in that short amount of time.
Yeah.
And also I think the workouts are just brutal.
Yeah.
At least Coach Bayless's.
Yeah. For those that if you know, you know.
But a serious note, I think I think honestly, I think it was the turnover of people in the organization.
That's a
I
good point.
think, I think you guys in college that come in, they're 18 years old, they're looking for stability, and unfortunately, some programs, I even say most programs these days don't have that stability throughout their 4 years. We had certainly no stability at
Yeah.
certain points. Um, so I think that was probably the hardest part is you get to know a coach and you really like them. And then, a week later you get a text that they've been fired and you're kind of like, well, what's going to happen now?
Yeah.
And so I think that's the hardest part. And I think that's football in
Yeah.
general, the NFL the same way, if not more so. So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a good point. I mean, especially at the college and NFL level, there's just so much pressure built into every day you walking in the facility. Like, those are people's like jobs.
yeah,
That's what they get paid to do, and that's how they support their family, and a lot of different things like that. So there's just a lot of built-in pressure, and I mean, we felt it all the time. We'd see, I mean, for coaches, I mean, even players that did things that they weren't supposed to do or whatever. You see a locker cleared out or
yeah,
whatever it may be. But I agree that's tough, and you have to really just be able to stay focused on the things you can control, and and then just roll with the punches. I guess I guess
yeah.
you would say.
I think coaching is, that's a hard job, man.
Yeah,
I I give respect to any coach out there because it's just so hard, and you don't know what your next job is after you get let go from the one you're on, because that's just the way things go. Um, and I remember a coach sitting down, I won't say names, but sat down at dinner with us one night at the facility and was like, "You guys don't want to do this." And we were like, and then he was like, "You guys you have options. Like, you don't want to be moving around every other year, uprooting your family, doing some of this stuff."
yeah,
And that wasn't the main reason why I didn't go into coaching. I
yeah,
think coaching is great, but I didn't want to do it. But, I think it's hard, and a lot of people love it, and some people it's a grind for sure. So
yeah. And that, if you don't really love it, then it's gonna be it's
yeah,
it's gonna be a waste. I mean,
yeah,
you really got to love that thing. And obviously, we played under one of a coach with so much passion, and he was obsessed with it. Coach Diaco, and like which was it's amazing, and you could feel it obviously, and the way he talks, and the way he carries himself, and a lot of different things, and but yeah, you really got to love it. And I mean, shout out, hopefully we can get him on at some point, but Luke, he's been coaching now for a few years, right?
oh yeah,
And so kudos. It's a tough job. It's a tough job. And
it absolutely is. We should have done a joint segment with me and Luke.
you will we'll make that happen. We will. Yeah, no, I want to get so we've just been doing one-on-ones so far. We're getting this episode 8, but yeah, I definitely want to do some roundtables. I think it would be super useful to talk about different things and bounce things off each other, and I
Yeah,
think it would be a good conversation. So we definitely will. All right, so that was a good one. Gaining weight. Glad to see it. How much you weigh nowadays?
uh, like 240, like
Okay.
probably 230.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right. You brought you
I lost
you.
a little bit of weight, but I don't know, man. It's something about the tall frame. You just don't want to lose too much.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No, trust me. I agree.
Look skinny.
Absolutely. No, yeah, you definitely look great. I mean, I'm in different phases because like I'll like bulk for a while, and then if I like train for running, I was doing these runs, so then I'll lose like 30 pounds, and then you know
Yeah.
lift again, and but I'm on the heavier side right now. I'm probably 260. Um, but okay, so next, how do you think your family influenced your success in sports, and I guess in general? Did how did that have an influence on you?
My family had a huge influence on me in sports. So my dad was an athlete, and his main sport was baseball. So
Mm,
like I was always why I was into
that's right.
baseball.
Yeah.
he still credits my hand-eye coordination to, playing catcher in baseball.
Yeah.
Um, so I think, he's the biggest influence on me for sports because, he always coached my little league teams.
Yep.
My mom drove me around to countless tournaments and stuff. Sports still is like a huge part of my life, and I'm sure your life, and anyone that
Yeah.
we ever, because it's just a love for being active,
Yeah.
and that was a love I had since I was young, and my dad really fostered that because he was an athlete himself, and I think the biggest thing I'd say, at least how they influenced me, was they're always supportive. I seldomly, I can't remember a single game that my dad wasn't at in Connecticut.
Really?
And that's
wow.
Between an 8 and 10 hour drive from Ligonier, depending on when you leave.
Yeah.
We played a lot of noon games. So he would, leave Ligonier at 2 a.m. My mom worked all the time. She was very busy. So sometimes she could make it, sometimes she couldn't, but I don't remember a game he missed.
That's awesome.
And so he would drive 8 to 10 hours every morning on a Saturday just to get to my game. And, that says it all right there, man. I mean, that's support like nothing else. So
absolutely. That's huge. And that's awesome. Shout out to your dad. Okay. So the last question of this segment, which is something I ask everybody, what does being a good teammate mean to you? I mean, there's so many different facets to being a good teammate, and I think it's different. Everyone has a different answer to this. So, what does being a good teammate mean to you?
Yeah, I think the thing that's sticking out in my mind right now is investing in the other guy. So, you think about a one-on-one relationship, and you generally want to see that person be successful in their own right. You want to see them be the best that they can be. And it's not necessarily, whenever things are going good, it's whenever things are going bad. We had plenty of times when things were going bad, and there were guys that, up and left, they transferred, or there were guys who just quit. But there was always a core group of guys that we knew weren't going to do that. They had our backs, and they wanted to see each other, excel. So I think, I think willing to give hard advice as well as praise is just as important, because, if someone's not telling you, what you're doing wrong, then chances are they're not really wanting you to do well. So I think tough love is a huge component of being a good teammate. And there were a lot of guys that did that. Certainly a lot of coaches, but I think just investing in, the guy next to you and in your meeting room, or I think the tight ends room, we had a lot of guys who are still friends, and we did that. I thought we did that pretty well.
Yeah, no, I mean that's huge, and I completely agree. That is a huge aspect to it. Yeah, and I think again the tight end room. I think our core group of guys that stuck around, and we were always going to be there regardless. And we invested in not only ourselves, but we invested in each other. We did everything for each other like we would do ourselves. And I think that was one of the greatest parts of our tight end room. And that definitely, set us apart, I think. And obviously we're all still, we may not live in the same places, but, we all still, have that same love and respect for each other, every time that we talk and see each other. So, I know I appreciated that from you, and you were that guy too. We always knew, I always knew that, you'd show up and you'd be there regardless. And, Tommy and, the core group of guys, that were always there. So, I appreciate that about you.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Same to you. I mean, you were there through thick and thin.
Yeah.
It was, and there's nothing wrong with transferring or anything like that. I think you got to do what's best for yourself. And you can make the argument that some of us should have transferred.
Yeah.
And make the argument for just about anyone on our team. But, I think there's something to be said for loyalty and for sticking around. So
absolutely. And that it's interesting because, you really learn to appreciate the little things and the journey and the process. And, there's, it may not show up on the stat sheet or, whatever it is, but I think I can't remember, but my favorite moment was with Coach Verducci, like, our last practice, he's like, carry him off the practice field. And, that was like, that was my best moment, to be honest. Just because we invest so much in each other and, as a group. So yeah, no, I definitely know we'll have that forever for sure. All right, so hop into the last segment, Q&A. So you ready for it?
Sure.
Okay, just making sure. All right, so favorite sport and why? Non-football, since that was the big sport that you play.
Oh, so this is like favorite sport that I play, or is there?
You can give a dual-wielded answer. You play one, you like to watch one.
So I think watching in general, the best sport I think there is to go and watch in person is hockey. I think ice hockey is fantastic. And I went a lot to Penguins games, and unfortunately they don't have a team here, but in Pittsburgh, it's nonstop action. I think it's just the best.
That's
Other
awesome.
than football.
I've never been to one, so yeah, I'll definitely have to come out sometime and watch one. That'll be fun. That's awesome.
For sure. And then I think just overall sport other than football is golf. I think golf is the greatest game. It tests you physically and mostly mentally. So
have you been playing at all?
Yeah, I try and get out every now and again.
Yeah.
Once a week, I'd say. Now that I live in Florida, it's going to be easier to play year round. So got to look into joining a club or something to keep the game. So
yeah, no, I know. I love playing golf too. I know we'll have to get out there for sure. One of these days get the band back together and play some golf. But yeah, no, I think I love golf too. And I mean, obviously Tommy loved to play also. And it's just it's fun. You can play it. It's more mental than it is physical, but I love golf. It's awesome.
Yeah.
And the Open the Open is this weekend.
Yeah, it starts tomorrow.
Yeah, big time.
Watch some of that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Okay, favorite player growing up that made you want to play. So gonna put football on this one since that was your biggest sport that you played.
Yeah, I think
could be one or two.
I think Heath Miller.
Okay.
Steelers tight end.
Yeah.
Heath Miller. He was the tight end for as long as I can remember when I was a kid and watching all those Super Bowls. And, he was someone I, modeled my game after just because he was such a good blocker and receiver. So yeah, I'd say he was probably the one whenever I decided, I think it was like 8th grade, that I wanted to play tight end.
Yeah.
He was the guy I was thinking about.
And those that your high school probably was looking at you for tackle, 6,
Oh, yeah, probably. I lucked out on that one.
Yeah, you definitely did. Heath Miller, great player. If you guys aren't familiar, great Steelers tight end. So that's a great one. Local guy. And you probably went to some Steelers games growing up. Yeah.
Yeah, a couple.
Yeah.
Was fortunate enough to go to a few.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so next one. Favorite place that you've played in? Stadium, location?
Oh. This is a tight one between the Superdome but I'm going to give it to AT&T Stadium in Dallas, the Cowboy Stadium.
Yep.
Both I played both those places in the preseason with Arizona, but the Dallas Cowboy Stadium is unbelievable, man. It's a sight to behold if you've never been there. And playing on that field was even cooler. So
I'm sure that's cool. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, with the preseason, those are two. Historic stadiums. That's amazing. I know we had a couple cool ones, in major league stadiums and such in college, which is cool. But I mean,
that's right.
Yeah, I mean we played in Raymond James for down in Florida, Tampa Bay Rays Stadium. Well, Raymond James is the Bucs Stadium. Tampa Bay Rays MLB Stadium for the bowl game. Yankee Stadium. Also, Temple played in, I forget what their stadium is in Philly.
Lincoln Financial,
Lincoln,
which is
the Eagles Stadium.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, it's funny you mention that because I tell people it's pretty insane that, we've played in Fenway Park,
And
Yankee Stadium, Fenway Park, Yankee Stadium, and Tropicana Field. So 3 baseball stadiums. Most MLB players can't, or even baseball players can say they played in Fenway and Yankee, and we're football players saying that. So think about how few people have played football in those stadiums.
Yeah.
And we did both.
I know. We're gonna have to get like a Facebook group together or something like that. If everyone that's done it,
we'll meet up every year.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, a little Yankee Fenway football alumni.
Yeah.
No, that is super unique. You're right. Yeah, no, there's not a lot of people. There's definitely a short list. So I mean, it's definitely special for sure. Okay, so we kind of touched on a few different sports moments, but we'll open it up to any sports moment that you had. Could be, when you were in the NFL or, growing up. Was there one moment that sticks out above the rest that, was just, your favorite sports moment? I mean, it could be one of the ones we covered already. So
yeah, you're digging in the memory bank. I think I've had a lot of good moments.
Yeah.
I still think just because of the magnitude of the Houston win and the bowl game,
100%.
I think that's probably the top one still for me.
Yeah.
Probably forgetting something.
Yeah.
That one sticks out.
Yeah, it totally does. And, being at home and, rushing the field and that stuff too. And
and that was insane too, just because I feel like the UConn fan base hadn't had anything to celebrate in the past.
Absolutely. Year. Exactly. And, I remember the locker room. I think Coach Diaco was breakdancing.
Yeah.
There's a video of it. It is a funny, that is, you're right. That is definitely for sure up there. Super fun. I mean, it's just, when everything comes together and you feel whole, it's like, oh, you worked so hard for something. And as a team, you can individual stuff, but as a team, be able to achieve something,
I think even a lot of guys who have great individual success would say team moments are just the best because everyone's feeling the same way, and you can talk about that for years like we are right now.
Yeah. And
guys have individual accolades, they share that with themselves, and that's pretty much it. And but I think team successes are the ones that stick around.
And you invest so much in each other and the game, and to get wins. That's literally what we practice to do. So to have some type of success in that, it's special for sure. Yeah, I completely agree. All right, so we're almost to the end here. Last question. Your favorite TV show or movie that you've seen recently?
Oh, favorite TV show or movie
that you watched
recently?
That you watched that you like.
Definitely James Bond, No Time to Die.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
I'm a huge Bond fan. So
I am too.
Yeah, that was a good one. Although I'm not really ecstatic that
sad.
I don't want to ruin the ending for anyone.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! If you haven't watched it, don't listen to this part.
Yeah. When James Bond dying, just it isn't a thing. James Bond doesn't die.
Exactly. So, he always gets off. Like he gets away, right? Like he
always. And they're going to come out with more movies, no doubt. But I'm always a fan of that franchise, and that was a great movie I've seen recently, I'd say.
I agree. Did you see Top Gun?
Oh yeah, that's a good one too.
That was good.
I really like that as well. Yeah,
I did too, and I never saw the first one. And I'm a big 007 guy also, so I've been invested in the series. So I agree that one was, and obviously the movie's nowadays and it's so well done. I mean, it's crazy, the graphics and everything, and but yeah, no, it's definitely sad that he died. But I mean, they're gonna shift the series, but I think that'll be the last one that's like of what the series is, actually is,
Yeah, I mean, I understand that the whole.
And he gets old. Yeah.
Craig's last movie. So.
Yeah. I get it. Okay, so your next steps, your goals. Obviously you just moved down to Florida. Do you have
Yeah.
any goal? Do you have any athletic things that you're looking to do? Are you gonna play some basketball, golf? You trying to do anything? You gonna get into running like Tommy and myself? What are you gonna?
Uh, I run every once and again.
Okay.
I consider running a hobby. I like to stay in shape.
Yeah.
You guys can appreciate it's a tough habit to break. So like I still wake up at 5:30 in the morning and go lift before work,
Yep.
but I try and run a couple days a week.
Yeah.
But I think athletically, I golf and
Yeah.
probably gonna get into beach volleyball now that
Okay.
I'm down here.
Okay.
Which I think it could be fun, and
That's cool.
basketball too. I'd like to get back into basketball. I think that's a good way to exercise and stay in shape.
Yeah.
But most goals, they are professional goals these days.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So professional goals, where where are you trying to get to? Like, what's your like ideal role eventually that you want to do?
Yeah. So we talked about, I went to grad school for health administration and
Right.
business administration. So right now I work at the Mayo Clinic in Florida. So hospital
Yep.
operations is essentially what I work and what I do. So I want to do that for a while. I have no timetable. I know,
Yeah.
it'd be great to eventually, run a hospital or, run a physician practice plan or something like that. But I've always kind of been entrepreneurial. So I think I grew up around a small family business. So I think maybe eventually someday, if I have a good idea, run with it. But
Yeah.
today, I haven't had that idea yet, so I'll let you know.
I'm sure we'll talk about that at some point. Yeah, totally. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, beach volleyball is a big thing here, also Santa Barbara. I mean, you got to get out here. You got to get out here.
I do.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for you to invite me.
No, shut the hell up. Yeah, it's been an open invite since day one at training camp. But yeah, no, we'll make it happen for sure. We got some good golf out here too, and obviously down there. I just went down to Florida for a couple days, and I don't think the only time I've ever been there is for the bowl game.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was literally the only time I've ever been down there.
It's a little crazy in some parts.
Yeah, agreed.
It's nice. I like it here. It's nice in Jacksonville.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, I mean, it seems like a great place. Well, thank you for coming on. We got any plugs? Your Instagram we'll put it on the screen if anybody wants to follow. I know you're not a big social media guy.
Yeah, I have it, but
Yeah.
I don't post a lot. But
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Okay. All right. Anything else you want to plug, or that's?
I want to plug you, Nick. I want to plug you because you've done some amazing things since we stopped playing football, and keep up the good work, man. I think you're always someone that goes the extra mile and thinks outside the box. So I just want to tell you to keep doing that because this is a cool thing, and having guys on to talk about their experiences, something that's I think is awesome. So keep it up.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that. It definitely hits home. I know, we go back for sure, and we were, in the room together for way too many hours in college.
Yep.
So yeah, no, I appreciate that, and I definitely will. And yeah, we'll definitely have you back on. Maybe we can do I'm thinking of doing some sort of roundtable, with a couple of guys, and we can talk about things that are on our minds and experiences, and bounce things off each other. I think it'd be cool. So amazing. So thank you for listening, everybody. If you've gotten to the end, I know it's a little longer episode, but obviously it's a lot of great stuff. So Alec, we appreciate you being with us today. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you in the next one. Hey everyone, thanks for listening to the episode. It was another amazing episode. Thank you to Alec for coming on with us. There's so many great discussions and insights, the nuances of college football, the tight end position, and the reality of signing with an NFL team and trying to make the roster. There's so much value that can be taken from this conversation, I think. He was one of the OG tight ends with me at the University of Connecticut, along with a couple other of the guys that we have interviewed previously, Tyler and Tommy. And I just appreciate the person that Alec is, and I appreciate his story, and I hope you guys were able to get something from it. Again, thank you for listening. If you haven't already, please follow us on the podcast platforms. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel and give us a like. We appreciate it. And you can also leave us a review on podcast platforms. Feel free to email us anytime, teammates@lenk.media. It's teammates@lenk.media. We love to hear your feedback and what you want to see in future episodes. We've got some exciting plans for the future of the Teammates podcast. So thank you for coming along this journey. See you in the next one.